Hey everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia, back with the latest installment of the Jungle Roar podcast, brought to you by the great folks at All Good Home Improvement and Prize Picks, and of course our friends at CLNS Media. Back with me as we gear up for next week, July 23rd. Can you believe it, James Rapien? We're going to be back on a practice field outside Paycor Stadium. 2 practice fields and a rehab field to be exact. The Kettering Health practice fields outside Paycor Stadium. Training camp is a week away. Are you ready?
Or not. It doesn't matter. It isn't going to wait on me. That's right. It doesn't matter if I'm ready or not. I know what's coming. And look, every time this year, you weren't ready for this, but I'll do it. I tell myself how much of a blessing it is to be able to do what we do and cover this team.
Sure.
And I love it. I love every second of it. At the same time, you also know what marathon you're about to enter. And so you're like, can I get another week? There's not another week coming, Trag. So I will be ready next week, no doubt. And believe it or not, I'm excited.
That's why I think we'll get to the news that happened right out of the chute here on Wednesday. And that was the announcement by the Bengals of the selection of the 2 latest Ring of Honor inductees. That would be 2 guys from the 1970s, a little bit of the 80s with Dave Lapham. But Dave Lapham, Mr. Bengal, and Lemar Parrish both had their Zoom calls with us, the Bengals media, on Wednesday. And I found them both interesting for different reasons. The first of which, Dave Lapham, very grateful. He had a very grateful, gracious tone to his comments, which lasted for about 20-25 minutes. And then there was Lemar Parrish, and I found his comments about 2 subjects particularly interesting. One about Mike Brown and Paul Brown, and how much respect he has for the Brown family, always had, never had any bitterness, he said on Wednesday. And then his very heartfelt comments about the late, great Ken Riley, who he credited Ken Riley's son, Ken Riley II, with helping him get into this Ring of Honor. That's what I took away from Wednesday's Zoom call with us.
Good takeaways for sure. And I think let's start with Lemar Parrish, because it's summing him up is very simple. He's one of the best playmakers in team history. And a lot of people from that era that remember that era think he should be in the Hall of Fame, no doubt. Think he's better than Ken Riley. There are people I know for a fact that have been on this podcast that remember both players and think he was better than Ken Riley. And not that they don't believe in Ken Riley, but that Lemar was that good, that accomplished, that athletic, that explosive, that dynamic. Who am I to argue? I thought he should have went in last year. Obviously, it's an imperfect science. I love that he's getting in and people are going to learn about him because he's a game-changing talent on defense and special teams, and that's becoming more and more rare, I would say, from a member of the secondary especially. To have the nose for the football that he did, to be as dynamic of a returner as he was. And so, yes, well deserved for Lemar Parrish. And then Dave Lapham, I mean, you're talking to someone who wrote a history book about the Bengals. Yes. and about their history. No one knows. I'm not sure there's anything in there that I wrote that Dave didn't experience or know, because as a player, as a broadcaster, he was a part of all 3 Super Bowls. He was a part of the Bengals in the 70s when they were the expansion Bengals and establishing themselves and playing at a higher level than I think most people thought they would that early on, especially with what happened to Greg Cook. He remembers that and knows that story and how much that impacted the franchise at the time and could have impacted their championship chances. I mean, there's just so many layers that Dave has been a part of, and for him to be a part of it still, he always was deserving of the Ring of Honor, and I'm really excited for him. And the other thing that I think is really cool, and this is something that I'm not sure I've been able to say anywhere. I've obviously praised Dave plenty, but when I was really young in this business, just getting out of college, I worked at ESPN 1530 and 700 WLW, and I was just starting to do sports things here and there. And when you're just starting to do that, and you're also doing other talk shows and things like that, and you're producing for a bunch of them, and basically what you're doing is pressing buttons and making sure the show runs and operates.
Right.
Dave Lapham treated me like he would, like I had been in the business forever. It was really nice and was never rude, was never mean, was never, and he could have been, because there were times I remember for a fact I messed up. Part of that was maybe the equipment here and there. Part of that was me, an operator user error. And there was never any issue. And I think that when you're as established as him, could easily have issues. But Dan and Dave were always awesome. And so, yeah, I think that's just another layer to it. Is it's not just player, broadcaster, everything he's meant to the organization. But when you talk to people that know him and have interacted with him day to day, it doesn't get much better than Dave Lapham.
No, and people forget the fact, I think, in this generation, we talk about Cody Ford being a versatile offensive lineman. Dave Lapham played all 5 positions along the offensive line, and
they could use him right now.
They absolutely could use him right now, and one would wonder if he might not win the right tackle job for the Bengals.
Right guard job. Amari.
I said right tackle. Right guard. Yeah. Thank you. Right guard job for the Bengals. Yes. Well, you are paying it forward, James. That's what you're doing. You're paying it forward. Anyway, Dave Lapham was a tremendous offensive lineman in his day. Lemar Parrish in his Zoom call called Dave Lapham, the most powerful, versatile lineman the team has ever had. And it would be hard to disagree with that in terms of his versatility. Obviously, Anthony Munoz is in a league of himself, so is Willie Anderson. We understand that. But Lapham gets so much attention for his enthusiasm and passion for the Bengals that I think people forget what he was as an offensive lineman going up against the likes of Joe Green, Mean Joe Green, and other defensive linemen around the National Football League.
Dave Lapham was part of my all-decade team for the 1970s and Enter the Jungle, and I did an all-decade team for every single year. It was really close. I think he was probably a year away from doing it in the 80s as well, and there weren't many players that made 2 decades of the all-decade team, just to give you an idea. But, yeah, you're right. I mean, you look at it, 140 games for the Bengals, 105 starts, could play tackle for you, could play guard, could play both guard spots, could play center. It would be like if Ted Karras was specialized at center, but if you needed to bump him out the tackle in any given week, you could do that. Or Cody Ford, right. You mentioned him. You're not putting Cody Ford at center.
Nope. Right.
It's really hard to be able to snap and then also go on the edge. And Dave did that. And at one point in 1980, played a lot of tackle. And so it wasn't like it was just a spot 1 quarter of action. Like, he did a little bit of everything for this team. And so, yes, an extremely valuable piece. And you look at it in Bengals history, 140 games and the 105 starts, that alone is really hard to do. You add in the versatility, you add that he was on their first Super Bowl team as well. A lot of reasons to put him in the Ring of Honor. And what's crazy is as good of a career as he's had, football career, he's meant just as much as a broadcaster, if not more. And that was really tough to do at baseline.
Lemar Parrish to me was Deion Sanders before Deion Sanders. And I brought this up in the Zoom call, and it was interesting because Lemar said, I was drafted because I was an athlete, a pure athlete. And obviously he had some running back experience earlier in his, I believe it was in his college days. But when he got to the Bengals, Paul Brown, who drafted him, said, we need him as a corner. We need you as a cornerback. That was our biggest need at the time. And then he and Ken Riley had sensational careers in the early to mid-'70s, and the rest is history. But I just loved, he was a big reason I was a Bengal fan early on in the 1970s, James. And that was because of the style, the grace, the production, obviously, the playmaking, but the flair with which he played and the grace with which he carried himself. I think he made many instant fans around Cincinnati.
So you watched him,
I did.
and obviously I didn't watch him. Let me ask you this, because I look at him and I look at the ball production, the interceptions. You have 47 interceptions. You look at the returns and everything he did there from a special team standpoint. Could he have done a little Travis Hunter role in today's game? It's different then, way different. You're not throwing it as much, all of those things, but it's a more open game. It's a pass first game. Even if it was some of the time, do you think he could have been that type of guy?
Yes, I do. If he had worked at it, if he had really wanted to work at it, but he was already a punt returner at an exceptional elite level, and he was already a terrific cornerback. A cornerback, you mentioned this earlier, James, that he was so good that quarterbacks didn't throw to him, which is why I think Ken Riley's interception numbers were so high. And if you talk to people who covered the team back then, teammates of both Ken Riley and Lemar Parrish, they would tell you that a lot of quarterbacks just stayed away from Lemar and threw in Ken Riley's direction. And
Sure.
credit Ken Riley, a Hall of Famer, he made the plays, no question about that, 60 plus interceptions. But with Lemar Parrish, I think the reason he wasn't playing on the offensive side of the ball is simply because they needed him in two other areas. But yes, I think he could have played on the offensive side of the ball.
And the reason I ask that is just to give people an idea of what he was as a playmaker and who he was. And back then, you're right. You're not going to be able to do all of it now. Honestly, now he would probably return less punts, and you would use him more on offense and try find ways to get it.
Exactly right.
Back then, it's different. The game is different. The style is different. And that was a way to get the ball in his hands. And obviously he was so electric as a punt returner. Now I think you'd do it in big spots and then you'd find ways to get him the ball on offense. But I look at it and obviously he didn't finish his career, played 4 seasons in Washington after the Bengals traded him and then a year with the Bills in 82. But 8 Pro Bowls, an All-Pro. I mean, this guy, talk about Hall of Fame. If people in the 70s really thought that in real time, that he was better than Ken Riley, well, then he definitely needs to be in the Hall of Fame. And I do think that this can help get there, much like a Willie Anderson a few years ago. He's not in yet, but I think that putting him in the Bengals Ring of Honor, it certainly helps his case. Same thing here. And I hope to see it because you talk to people that were around then. And by the way, let's just do this. I just look at the numbers just to put it in context. His first 3 seasons with the Bengals, he had 17 interceptions. 17, 5, 7, and 5. That is wild. I mean, I without even looking, I'm sure he's the only Bengal in team history to do that. 17
in an era
interceptions.
where passing wasn't what it is today.
Yep.
Remember that also.
7th round pick, by the way. 7th round pick.
Incredible. What did you think of him saying that the player that he likes watching the most today is Ja'Marr Chase because every time the ball is in his hands, he feels like he can score? I love that comment.
I think a lot of playmakers in general, like if you were a playmaker in your day, you're going to look at Ja'Marr and just be like, man, because he's just so unique. Like there probably hasn't been another player like Lemar Parrish in Bengals history. There hasn't been another Ja'Marr Chase. There's no one that can do what he does. And the way he attacks the ball, the way he can get open, the way he can get separation, the way he can win after the catch and turn a little play into a huge play. It's truly unique. And so he's so tough to tackle and he does it in a different way than a lot of these guys that are big time playmakers. But it's special. And it's why, I mean, Ja'Marr could walk away right now and just be go to Paris for Fashion Week and just stay there for Fashion Year and retire from the NFL. And guess what? He's getting into the Bengals Ring of Honor because he's been that special already. But obviously he's got plenty of ball left in him, and he's going to be doing this for the rest of the decade and then some.
Chatting up James Rapien of Cincinnati Bengals Talk on YouTube and, of course, Bengals Talk Want to tell you about All Good Home Improvement. All Good has been helping homeowners for 32 years when looking for a home improvement company. The number one quality they are looking for, including yours truly, one thing they're looking for is trust with a capital T. For the last 32 years, All Good has been trusted to help homeowners like myself replace their windows, install new vinyl siding, install new gutters, and professionally install a new roof. All Good offers interest-free financing with payments starting at just $99 a month and no money down. All Good's products are professionally installed and backed by both a material and labor warranty. Right now, All Good offering a 50% off sale or buy one, get one free. For more details and to schedule a free in-home consultation, simply call 513-247-2900. That's 513-247-2900. Or as always, you can go to their website, myallgoodhome.com. Back with James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com and Cincinnati Bengals Talk on his YouTube channel. All right, let's get to the news that a lot of fans are growing tired of, but it's a story out there. Shemar Stewart is now officially, including people who have to cover it, Shemar Stewart is the last first-round pick not signed by their respective NFL team after the Denver Broncos signed their first-round pick on Wednesday. Is the Shemar Stewart story going to carry over past July 23rd, James?
Feels like it. Feels like it. And it's going to be a story on Saturday if he doesn't report. And that's the first one. Rookies have to report on Saturday, July 19th for training camp. We'll see if he does. But the two sides just got to figure it out. Like if the clause that the Bengals want in there is a non-negotiable for the Bengals, which I do think on the surface, and there's so many details that we don't know.
Right.
You can't see exactly what the Bengals are trying to do or what Shemar has an issue with. But on the surface, it's something that a lot of teams do, and the Bengals are trying to implement it. Fine. If this is a non-negotiable, we'll understand that you may have to you put a sweetener or two in there to get Shemar to sign. And that sweetener could just mean more of your signing bonus today for signing Shemar. And yeah, we know we put this in there for you. We believe in you. Let's give you a little bit more signing bonus. On the other side of it, if you're Shemar, let's not pretend and make it out to and I'll do a Superman reference here, that Mike Brown is Lex Luthor and he's trying to just take over the world because they want to put this clause in there that is pretty darn reasonable for first-round picks. Plenty of first-round picks have agreed to it, including Walter Nolan, who was the 16th pick right before Shemar Stewart. I believe the 18th pick as well, and Gray Zabel agreed to something similar with the Seahawks. And so I don't think it's unreasonable. I understand why Shemar wouldn't jump at signing that since the Bengals haven't required it in the past. So if you're the Bengals, bend a little. And if you're Shemar, bend a little and maybe just tone it down a little, like a notch or two. There's no reason to be as loud. I mean, we've gotten plenty of conversation out of it. So in a way it's good, but not everything needs to be loud. And I think Shemar's camp has been too loud during this process. And I've said that multiple times. Yeah. I'm sure they're aware that I feel that way. Fine. Just stop being so loud. I get you might be mad. That's fine. It's part of the negotiating process. But you're negotiating with robots. The Bengals are emotionless. So you can yell, scream, cry, throw a temper tantrum, and they're just going to be looking at you. And so you have to know that going in, and I'm not sure that's the case. So I don't know if it'll get done before camp. I'm not that optimistic, but it should. And I think that there's really no one benefits if it doesn't. It hurts Shemar, it hurts his bank account, and it hurts the Bengals because they could certainly use Shemar Stewart on the field.
Okay, what to make of? Did he work out with Texas A&M, obviously his alma mater, where he came from, where he played college football, or didn't he? Bud Elliott of CBS Sports claimed he did, but Kelsey Conway, a colleague of ours, very, very well respected with the Inquirer and does a lot of calling like you do, James. She had a story saying that he was back at Texas A&M, but was not working out with the team.
Sure.
It's not uncommon for these guys, and it's important to understand this in context of what we're talking about. It's not uncommon for a player during the summer months to go back to college and work out with people that he's familiar with, but not with the team, obviously. He is not permitted, as the rules currently stipulate, he is not allowed to just say, well, I'm not going to play in the NFL this year. I'll go back to college football and play for A&M. That's not going to happen, because once you declare for the NFL draft and are selected by an NFL team, you can no longer go back and play in college. So the way I read all of this is that somehow the story was planted that, hey, he's back at Texas A&M, he's still frustrated, he'd love to be playing back there, but he can't, and it's all smoke and mirrors. Your take?
I wonder why this is out in general, like why it got out. Maybe someone from Texas A&M said, oh, well, Shemar's working here. Maybe it's that simple. But usually things leak for a reason.
Yes.
And so that's the part of it that irks me. Like, I really hope Shemar's camp, and clearly they don't think that this is going to work. But I don't think I hope at any point they didn't think that that was a leverage play. Like they could do that and use that. That's what I mean about loud. Like there's just a lot of noise around it. There wasn't any noise around Jahdae Barron not signing because they got him on the field. And fine, you had an issue with the waiver that the Bengals offered you. Fine. So you missed OTAs in the offseason program. Fine. But just bring it down a couple notches. And so for this, I hope it's as simple as he is just working out at A&M, and you know how the rumor mill can just fly. If it's that simple, then it's not his camp's fault. It's no one's fault, because he should be in shape. He should be working out. And I get working out at a familiar place. That makes a ton of sense. We all do it. We all go to the same place over and over and over. Why wouldn't you? So, yeah, I think this is a nothing burger. I do think that I tweeted this on Wednesday morning. Like, it's really easy to come back from this. It's simple. Agree to a deal, get Shemar on the field, make sure Shemar is productive. And that includes for his camp and the Bengals. Like, that should be their goal. That should be Shemar's goal. That should be everybody's goal that's involved. How do you do that? You got to get there, and you got to figure out how to do it. It starts with the deal, and all this college nonsense is exactly that. And if anyone is telling him that he should consider that, well, Shemar should distance himself from whoever that is.
I mean, I can't believe Zach Hiller has not told him, yeah, I know you'd like to go back and play in college. You can't do that. I mean, Zach Hiller has got his agent.
I'm sure he and I'm sure he did. It should be it shouldn't even need to be that far. Like, it's $18 million guaranteed. Like, we understand that, right? He's going to get $11 million this year. Like, that's real money that he's going to get, and it's going to change his life. Like, there's no reason why he would do anything else other than find a way to make it work with the Bengals, regardless of how the negotiations have gone at this point.
Okay, let's move on to the other defensive edge that everybody is wondering about. In some ways,
drama.
A lot more about. What did you think of Trey Hendrickson's social media post, his first, I guess you would call it, comments since his impromptu on the practice field news conference back on, I think it was May 13th?
Yeah, I think it's this one is a bit more predictable for me. Like, I thought we would potentially be here. If you would ask me in January, I would have said, yeah, I don't think the Bengals are going to be in a rush to get Trey done. I think they'll try. And I think they probably would have gotten it done. And then the market really shifted and it changed on them. And they gave him permission to seek a trade. That was basically fake. It was kind of stupid. They were never going to trade Trey unless they just got knocked over. I mean,
unless somebody made a stupid offer to him.
Yeah, but that's smoke and mirror. Like, there's just no reason. There's no because you probably have a really good idea of his value already. And so to go that route, I was critical of them in the moment. Like, what are you doing? But it was really just a play like, hey, see, we told you, and fine, whatever. But he knows his value on the market. And so they need to come together and they need to make this work. And what I think is interesting, Trags, I don't think that Trey is going to report for camp on time. I don't think he's going to be on the field. I don't think he's going to be a hold-in. I think he's going to be a holdout. And what's going to be interesting to me isn't how the Bengals react, because like I said, they're robots. They're emotionless. But the guy in the building that knows they need to have Trey Hendrickson to have any realistic shot of winning the Super Bowl this year is Joe Burrow. We've seen him flex his muscles and his power within the organization with T. And Shemar said, hey, we're going down the line here. And they were working on a deal. And he's like, now get T done before moving any farther. Like, the stars flex their muscle. When does Joe decide to go back? Because he was pretty tame about Trey during the offseason program, because I think he knows he's got to wield that sword and use it when he needs it.
Pick your spots.
How long does it go into camp? Is it after preseason game number 1? Does he say, oh, man, I felt good out there. By the way, they better sign Trey Hendrickson if we want to win a Super Bowl, and they're serious about what. At some point, he's going to do that if they don't get it done. And that's what I'm kind of watching. I don't think it's going to be his first comments of camp. But at some point, if it's not done, Joe is going to say, all right, I'm gonna get Excalibur out. I'm going to get the sword out, and I'm going to show everyone that I'm the captain. You know, so we'll see. But that's what I'm looking at, because there's no true deadline. But, man, it would certainly be nice to have 91 out there. And I do have a contract proposal that if you want it, I can give you. I can share.
Please do. I'm acting as the proxy agent for Trey Hendrickson here. Fire away. Yeah.
I would offer Trey a 2-year, $76 million extension. He's set to make $16 million in base salary this year. The $76 million, $12 million of that would go to his base salary this year, so he would get a bump up to $28 million. The deal would include a big fat signing bonus as well, so he'd get a lot of money up
40
front.
to 45 million.
Sure. What, you know, it might not even need to be that much, but it would be a significant signing bonus. So you get the signing bonus, you get him up to $28 million in base salary this year. Next year, a lot of that money would be guaranteed, and his salary would be $32 million. And then if the Bengals want to get out after that, there would be an out after 2026. But they also would be on the hook that following year for $32 million in salary for Trey if he does play at a level that is worth it. And I think he will. And so this way, you get him a lot of new money. You get him money up front. And yet the Bengals aren't going to 35, 38, $40 million. He's not a free agent. The market is nice and the market is booming. But guess what? You're not on the market. And so it's a give and take. And I think that both sides would be leery of offering that deal if you're the Bengals and leery of taking it if you're Trey. But I think that's the happy medium, because both sides would be reluctant, but ultimately do the deal.
He is James Rapien, does a fabulous job covering all things Cincinnati Bengals for BengalsTalk.com. Be sure to follow his Enter the Jungle podcast on the Cincinnati Bengals Talk channel on YouTube. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. On Prize Picks, you can now mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. Prize Picks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. And also remember this, every Friday is Flex Friday. Make sure you opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the protected play. Download the app today and choose code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup prize picks. Run your game. Back with James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com. Joe Burrow is a top 3 quarterback in the National Football League per the latest ESPN General Managers poll, I believe it was, James. And there were people that could not believe that Joe Burrow was ahead of Lemar Jackson. Look, I mean, Ferrari, Rolls, Lamborghini, Mercedes, Maybach, take your pick, right? I mean, they're all great quarterbacks, from Patrick Mahomes to Josh Allen to Joe Burrow to Lemar Jackson, all happen to be in the AFC. But, I mean, at this point, I think it's just what suits your team the best. And I think Joe Burrow suits the Bengals best. That's the way I always look at polls like that.
Yeah, I think if there's a Mount Rushmore, those are the 4 for current Bengals and or current NFL quarterbacks. And the Bengals would pick Joe. I think Joe has more on his plate than any of these other guys.
Yes,
and it's how he wants it. It's how the Bengals trust him to do it. But I'm not. I mean, you can make the argument for any of those 4 to be number 1. Joe was better than Patrick last year. Flat out better.
I don't think the numbers would indicate that. And his
so was Lemar.
Eyeball,
so was Josh.
The eyeball, the eyeball, the analytics, they all would support that. But in the end, it's a team game.
No doubt. And so I have no issue with it. I mean, Joe fell in this year's rankings. Josh passed him, didn't pass Patrick. They all outplayed Patrick. I think things would have been different. For example, if Joe is on the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl, I think that game feels different and looks different. I think he can handle the blitz much better. He's used to it. He's going to be able to react. They're going to be able to adjust much better than Mahomes did with that Eagles defensive front. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that Joe is used to it and would be able to figure that out. And so they're all different. Lemar hasn't had the postseason success. Josh Allen hasn't necessarily had the postseason success that Joe Burrow has had. Joe Burrow hasn't won a Super Bowl. Mahomes has. He has 3 of them. Obviously has the best resume. But Joe has made it there and has made it to 2 AFC championship games and has had more postseason success than the other 2 guys, even though they haven't made the playoffs. The Bengals haven't made the playoffs like Lemar has and like Josh Allen has over the past 2 seasons. So they're all awesome. They all have issues when you want to make the argument for them. And I get why the Bengals would take Joe, and we'll see. I think this is a big year for Joe because he's got to go out there, put up similar numbers, I would say, but it's got to result in wins. And it is a team game, but the offense could have done a bit more last year as well. Everyone's talking defense. The offense wasn't perfect, and the offense needs to be better this year than it was last year.
What are some of the, give me maybe 2 or 3 subjects you're going to be looking at closely as training camp opens up July 23rd?
Well, the offensive line, that's a big one. You need the offensive line to come together. And Scott Peters, they brought him in. There's a ton of expectations, I think, for him to get more out of those guys and out of the young guys. And whether it's a Cordell Volson or a Dylan Fairchild or a veteran like Lucas Patrick that you brought in, they need more on the interior of their offensive front. They also need Amarius Mims to take a big step forward. And if that happens, it could be a really good unit. And so we'll see, or at least a good unit, which they were at times last year, other times not so much. The other thing here is the defensive front. We talked about 2 guys that they may not have at the start of camp, but how does Chris Jenkins look? Is BJ Hill healthy? McKinley Jackson, what does it look like for him in his second season? Those are some big questions. They brought in TJ Slayton. I think that's going to matter a ton. And then third, just how much of a fast start, like how much is the fast start and the need for a fast start discussed? Because it's been a big topic. Zach Taylor brought it up in January, right after the season, when he made some shifts on his coaching staff. I'm going to be seeing you early in the morning, no more afternoon practices. How does that work?
By the way, I love it, actually.
I do too. I think it's going to be nice to get out of there relatively early, come home, you do your work, and you're home for dinner. I mean, that sounds great. But does that really matter? Does that change if they're going to win games or not? If they're going to go to Cleveland and win or not? I don't know. So does it feel different? Does camp have a different feel this year because they know they need to start fast? I think that's an interesting thing. I'm not sure it needs to feel different, but I'm curious if it will feel different.
One of the bigger questions, and I don't think a lot of people are talking enough about this, is leadership on defense. You lost all three captains on defense. Who are going to be the three captains? I think B.J. Hill is a natural in the middle of the defensive line, like you said, and he's been on the team. He knows the culture that Zach Taylor has built inside that locker room. I think B.J. Hill would be a natural. One player that you know very well, you've talked to him a lot, James, is Dax Hill. Yeah. Is he someone ready to step up and be a captain and really take the bull by the horns in that secondary?
Man, it's interesting because I think there are scenarios where you could look at him and say he's captain material because he handles adversity as well as probably anyone on the defense for sure. You know, I mean, Joe's really good at handling adversity. I think Shemar as well. Right. But like everything that he's been through in his first 3 seasons and it, you know, position changes in and out of the lineup, a lot of uncertainty as a rookie. Then he gets demoted essentially and has to move positions last year after 1 year at safety, after Jesse Bates leaves and Von Bell leaves. And then you look up and he's their best corner. And I do think he's the most talented player in that secondary. I don't know if he'll be a captain, but what they need him to emerge as a real guy, a building block, someone that you look at as when you think of the Bengals defense right now, you think of Trey Hendrickson, maybe Logan Wilson, and that's it. By mid-year, you're really hoping that Dax Hill is one of those guys that you think about.
Yeah, I'm going to go B.J. Hill, I'm going to go Logan Wilson, and I'm going to go Dax Hill. And that's
interesting. That would be huge.
My early projection. I'm going to let you go, James. I've taken enough of your time. I'm going to be seeing enough of your smile.
You're in trouble.
Face. Earl, I know I am. That's why I'm trying to laugh about it right now. You know, come 2 weeks from right now, a weekend, I'm going to be trying to keep my head on straight.
I'm going to have you punching air, my friend. Get ready.
All right. Deep breath. One big final deep breath in the final 6 days, and then we are hitting the ground running next Wednesday, July 23rd, outside Paycor Stadium. You ready?
Can't wait.
Break. All right. He is James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com and Cincinnati Bengals Talk on his YouTube channel, where you can catch Enter the Jungle, a terrific video presentation and a terrific podcast in general. So anyway, until next time, he's James Rapien. Want to thank my sponsors before I get out of here. Of course, we have to take care of the business. All Good Home Improvements, and of course, Prize Picks. Until next time, keep that jungle roaring.